saying stuff that I regret now.
Now that we're teammates?
Now we are teammates. I apologize for everything, Tom. Let me start with this. You're a process guy.
Yeah.
And my wife and I talk about this. She's a project woman. I'm a process guy. She likes big projects. And I think to myself, you were the ultimate process guy. Like Saban, Belichick, you're process people. And then the process goes.
Yeah.
Did you wake up a week after and think, maybe I should play golf? Like was losing the process, has it been a challenge?
I think anytime you transition into something new, there's a bit of a challenge because you're so programmed and wired to do things a certain way. And as an athlete, there's so much physical prep that goes along with your life. Even in the off season, I was always thinking about, was I prepared? If there was a game on Sunday, could I play? And I would think about that in April and May and June and July. And I would watch other great athletes. Floyd Mayweather comes to mind. Like, he always seemed ready to go. If someone called him, say, hey, you got to fight on Saturday, he'd be like, cool. And I think that's how I always physically train my body. Mentally, it was a little bit different because there was a whole game plan element to the process of preparing for the games. So I think the biggest challenge for me is the structure is very different now in my life because you don't have the routine. But I actually believe that the broadcasting at Fox this year for the first time will give me a lot more structure like I'm used to, and I really actually will look forward to that.
So you were in the booth this weekend, UFL championship, so it's kind of your first taste of doing it. You've also been probably a half dozen times that I'm aware of, been practicing upstairs. So I want you to take me from the first time you put on a headset upstairs until the UFL game and your last, you may have practiced today. When you watch the tapes, do you notice a difference with you?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I also think there's still so much more room for improvement. And it's almost like when I was a player, I never felt like I did things the right way. There were games where I'd go in afterward and think, God, I'm the worst quarterback in the NFL. Like, why would they even want me to play quarterback for this team? And I'm sure I'm going to feel that way here at Fox, where I finish a game and I go, God, I didn't even give them what they wanted. And it's a very challenging thing in your own mind. I've asked a few people, like, how do you know that you did a good job? And I think for me, so much of this is going to come down to the preparation. And did I feel like I was prepared? Did I feel like our crew was prepared? Did I give them the best over the course of the week so that we could give ourselves the best opportunity to be successful for the fans? Because really the game is the show. We're there to add our take on it in our analysis. But it's also, did we feel like we added to the broadcast? And from my standpoint, I'm going to work as hard as I can in the process of it, as you talked about earlier, to make sure that I do deliver, because I don't want to let anyone down. I don't want to let the people at Fox here down, and I certainly don't want to let the great NFL fans down either.
Well, both quarterback and broadcaster takes the ability to compartmentalize and then quickly pull things and put them in a game. So it's very similar, is that when you went into a football game, there were things that you practiced, waited to see. That may not happen until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then you have to take that film study, fourth quarter, loud crowd, can't hear, and implement it. That's what broadcasting is. I've said this before, Tom. I think what you're doing is the hardest thing in sports. 200 times for 8 seconds, be smart.
Yeah.
And if you have I kick it all the time.
Yeah.
People are just used to it. You're not
I think you do pretty good.
I've done fine. Are there nerves for Tom Brady? You haven't had nerves forever, right?
No, I always had nerves because it's a performance when you'd go out there on the field and you would feel like you put a lot into it. There was probably anxiousness and there were nerves because the outcomes weren't guaranteed for any of us. You'd go into a game, you'd feel like, oh, we got a great advantage this week. They got a few of their guys out. We're playing at home. This is exactly the game we want. Next thing you know, it's middle of the third quarter and it's a dogfight. So you never really know how sports are going to go, which was why we all tune in. We tune in because the outcomes are very unexpected, which if they're unexpected, there's a chance of winning and losing. And because of that, there's anxiety and there's nerves going into every single one of those games. So the only way that I knew how to combat the nerves and the anxiousness of the game was to prepare. So I was someone that got really, really good at my preparation over the course of my career. I got really efficient with my time, especially as you added a lot of other things to your life, like children. That's a big addition. So It's how can I prepare knowing that I have other things going on in my life, and I really want to be efficient with my time to make sure the time I am spending preparing is really worth it. I'm working on the things that are actually going to add to the broadcast rather than I'm just working on things to work on them that will actually never come up.
Right. I'll throw a theory at you, and I've used you as an example on this show and Matt Stafford. Offensive lines matter. I believe offensive line play has deteriorated due to the CBA. They practice less.
Yeah.
I think it's the most cohesive unit, and they're practicing less. Outside of the Lions, I'm not sure there's a great O-line in the league right now. Theirs feels to me very powerful.
Yeah.
What worries me, I saw this with Russell first year in Denver. I saw it with Aaron first year with the Jets. The reason I think you succeeded and Stafford did and Kirk Cousins will, because older quarterbacks are a bit more reliant on guard, center, guard protection.
It's very important.
In Tampa, you got Tristan Wirfs.
Yep.
You were very good guard, center, guard.
Sure.
And you got very comfortable quickly. That's what I worry about the Jets, is that two things are converging, Tom.
Yeah.
One, they've got all new offensive linemen. And two, many are older, and older offensive linemen don't play in the preseason anymore.
Yeah.
I don't worry about Aaron. But take me through that. You went through it with Tampa,
Sure,
where you had to move it. I mean, when you wanted Gronk, it may have been for blocking as much as catching.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many nuances to the success of an offense. I don't think you can ever make a bad O-line good. And over the course of my career, I believe I played with the best offensive line coach in the history of the NFL, in Dante Scarnecchia.
Yeah.
And regardless of who we drafted, free agents, we got free agents in the draft, free agents in NFL free agency, veteran free agency. We always pieced together a unit that played really well together. And all of them may not have been Pro Bowlers, but as a unit, they played as well as any team in the league.
Right.
And that was a tough challenge for every D-line you would play. You'd go, okay, I know they're going to block us well. I know the ball is going to come out quick. I know they're going to have good plans when we play man coverage. They're going to have man beaters. I know when we get in the red area, they're going to challenge us. They're going to have some different schemes in there in the run game that we're going to prepare for. We put a lot of pressure on the defense all the time to do things the right way, as opposed to the five offensive linemen having to draft first-round pick to put together a great O-line. So much of great O-line play is a great O-line coach. And I think we could talk about there's not a lot of great O-line coaches anymore in the NFL.
Jimmy Johnson has said for years, there's about 6 good ones on the planet at any one time.
Absolutely. And there's probably about 6 to 8 good quarterbacks on the planet. And there's probably about six to 8 good head coaches. And there's about 6 to 8 good defensive coordinators. So to try to get all the things right, which is why the NFL is so competitive in my mind, because there's so many challenges to keeping people together. Because when you have a good O-line, and everyone says, oh, this is the first-ranked or second-ranked or third-ranked offensive line. Well, in free agency, all the teams come in, they pick those guys out of that team and say, all right, well, we were going to bring you from the Patriots to the Bengals. We're going to bring you from the Patriots to the Chargers, because they knew that our guys were developed really well also. So we would lose a lot of offensive linemen. You'd have to replace them, and you'd have to develop them. And I think one of the pet peeves I have, one of the great things I would say in my experience with the Patriots was every player was coached. Even if you were on the practice squad, even if the scout team offense was out there, Dante Scarnecchia was coaching the scout team offensive line as if it was the starting offensive line. And I think a lot of coaches coach, hey, I'll just coach the starter, maybe a few backups, as opposed to I'm going to coach every single position. So when people go down, we're going to fill those guys in, and they're going to just step in and play a great role for us, because they're going to know all the calls. They're going to know the timing. They're going to know the precision. They're going to know exactly what we want to do on every play. So that was the development part. And I think, yeah, the CBA changed a lot. There's less practice time. I don't necessarily love that. There's a lot of areas of, say, the techniques and fundamentals, which, because you don't have the time, tackling, run after catch, special teams has basically been eliminated from the NFL. Yeah. With a lot of the rules. So that saves some time, but, you lose the kicking game, parts of the kicking game. So I think there's a lot of, because we don't have as much time on task, there's a lot of less time for us to develop the techniques and fundamentals that these players need to be successful. So they go to the outside and they look for coaches in the offseason to develop some of those things. Some of it works. It may work as an individual, but at the same time, football is a team sport. Right. So I would see quarterbacks throwing to receivers that weren't their receivers. Well, that's fine. It might be good for you, but it's not good for, let's say, the team.
That's right.
But
before I get into some other stuff, I'm going to be a little bit of a fan on my last question, but I want to ask you this. I have another theory.
Yeah.
Is that this is subconscious, and you were able in a better spot to handle this. But I have been arguing for years that number one receivers, there's a duality to it. They're great. Randy Moss is great.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, even a great quarterback will feel to some degree he's indebted to get him the ball.
Always.
And I thought when Dak Prescott broke into the league, he was better without the great Des Bryant.
Right.
The pressure left. Sometimes receivers are verbal.
Yeah.
And Stephon Diggs I would take on any team.
Yeah.
But he's verbal. Brandon Ayuk is verbal on his social.
Sure.
And I want you to go to that as I have argued. Now,